had an appointment with my psychiatrist last week where some feelings came up for me of being afraid or worried that I was heading down a path where I might eventually get fired by my psychiatrist. And so I wanted to talk a little bit more about why those feelings came up and what that experience was like, and just kind of this as a larger problem that many other people may be facing too. So maybe it's a good idea to start off by giving maybe a better picture than I have been of what exactly my care team looks like. Throughout this metabolic health project, I've really been pumping the idea of the importance of building a care team to support you through navigating using metabolic therapies such as the ketogenic diet to treat your mental illness. And I think maybe I've given an impression that I have all of these specialists around me who know so much about using metabolic therapies to treat mental illness, when really that could really not be farther from the truth. So when we started this project, I tried to find a metabolic psychiatrist, a psychiatrist who specializes in using metabolic therapies or metabolic health, but that was really, really difficult, and I just couldn't find anyone who is going to be able to treat me. And so what I did instead was I got connected with a keto coach, Nicole Laurent. She is a therapist who specializes in nutrition and particularly using metabolic therapies such as ketogenic therapy. And then for the rest of my care team, they stayed the same as the people who were treating me before using metabolic therapies. But I had conversations with each of them, letting them know what I was wanting to do and asking if they would be open to still supporting me through it. So that included my psychiatrist, my GP, and my therapist. And now each of these clinicians have had, varying levels of interest or enthusiasm or really involvement too. My therapist has been really supportive of it all, but we really have never gotten too much into metabolic therapies as a medical intervention. My GP is pretty enthusiastic about supporting us trying it and following me at like a very physical medical level. But, he's wanting to put Rob on statins, and he just doesn't really have any knowledge or expertise of metabolic therapies for mental illness. And then likewise with my psychiatrist, I've shared before that it's felt like he hasn't had much interest or shown much interest in this intervention that's been really, really effective for me. And again, I think that's just largely because he doesn't have expertise or knowledge in metabolic therapies, and it's really far removed from everything else he's seeing in clinical practice. But nevertheless, I kind of assembled this care team with an ideal vision of being able to learn from Nicole, the keto coach, about metabolic therapies as an intervention for my mental illness, and to be able to, communicate and share that knowledge with the rest of my care team. And we could work collaboratively to figure out, best course of treatment for me personally. And I think probably that is the ideal version of how this could go for my whole care team too, whereby I do believe that they all really want this to succeed, or to help support me to figure out how to have the best quality of life and the best experience of my illness possible. But I think something that I'm kind of running into, and what was kind of my experience last week at the appointment with my psychiatrist, is that it's probably a lot more complicated than that, navigating these relationships essentially, and how we communicate and navigate this new intervention and kind of way of thinking about mental illness and the treatment of mental illness. I went into the appointment with my psychiatrist really wanting his input and to have, as constructive a conversation as possible about, how to navigate the challenges that I was experiencing. I went completely off my medication as per his mid-September. So it had been about a month, and I was still experiencing symptoms of withdrawal. And so I wasn't really sure what to do about that, or how to navigate that, and if I should go back up on medication and titrate slower, or what really to do. And so I wanted to kind of get his opinion and have a conversation with him about how to go about it. But as I shared what was kind of going on and what I thought was happening, I did definitely notice that the conversation began to have maybe a bit of an edge to it. And it did feel like he was starting to maybe have some difficult feelings around being challenged or criticized or whatever in his knowledge and expertise. Because, he was saying things like, well, you shouldn't be experiencing any withdrawal now because the meds should be completely out of your system. And that's not totally in line with the various other learnings I've been doing around deprescribing. And I've heard from specialists saying, different things about deprescribing. And so I kind of tried to bring that forward to him. And yeah, it didn't really go well. And I quickly realized that I did need to kind of pull back a little bit in this conversation and, yeah, try to think more intentionally about how to create a more comfortable dynamic between us that could potentially allow in the future for these kind of more difficult or challenging conversations to take place. And so I think that sharing this experience is important because I imagine that it's something that many other people who are trying to navigate metabolic therapies with their care team are experiencing as well, whether it's difficulties with trying to get your care team on board in the first place with following you through that or supporting you through this intervention, whether it's best practices or how to reduce meds or, address issues that may come up like potentiation. There's so many of these types of issues that can come up using metabolic therapies to treat your mental illness that are really challenging, I think, to the status quo in psychiatry and the way we've understood the treatment of mental illness for so long. And I think that it's important to be mindful that, that is challenging for anyone to be faced with and try to figure out how to navigate such a monumental shift in the status quo or our understanding of best practices and whatnot. And I think I've been talking more on this channel about how identity is playing this really big role in terms of, identity just kind of feeling threatened by these new ways of understanding mental illness or the treatment of mental illness or what is possible in terms of recovery. And it's interesting to explore more how that challenge to identity may be showing up at a clinician level as well. And so how do you navigate this with your care team? How do you try to set yourselves up to have more collaborative or constructive dialogue about these issues you may be facing? I'll be honest, I don't really know. I'm still trying to figure it out myself. But I think that, the more difficult topics that are coming up throughout this project and the possibility of deferring opinions and whatnot, I think I'm realizing the importance of, working on effective communication. I was in this appointment with my psychiatrist and I was trying, I thought, to have a collaborative, constructive conversation about the issues I was facing and what I should do and what not, and quickly realized that maybe the way I was going about that conversation was inevitably feeling a little bit threatening to my psychiatrist. And I think it's important to understand that these clinicians, just like anyone else coming into a situation, have preconceived ideas or notions or beliefs about what best practices are and what effective treatment is supposed to look like. And so I think maybe handling that more delicately is important. And I picked up on the difficult feelings that I think he was starting to experience the way I was engaging in the conversation by bringing forward conflicting information. And so when I pulled back, I did try to set up a dynamic where I was looking to him for more expertise, where I asked him more questions about what he thought about XYZ in terms of deprescribing and whatnot. And that did help to kind of stabilize the situation where I thought, okay, I'm no longer in danger of being fired imminently, I think. And I don't mean that in a patronizing way where it's like you're just asking questions to make them feel important or whatever. I really don't think that that's the right way to go about it. I think more coming at it from a place of respecting and valuing the expertise that they do bring. They do have a lot of training in this and they have a lot of clinical experience with many other patients, and that's important to value too. But having more of that give and take relationship, or one where you hear the other person's perspective more authentically, maybe opens the door for you to share another or a different kind of perspective in a more constructive way too. Inevitably, in a psychiatrist-patient relationship, there is a power dynamic at play, and that can definitely create more friction, especially if you're coming at it from a place of really wanting to feel empowered or advocate for yourself and your care. But I think maybe it's important to remember or understand that ultimately your psychiatrist and your care team are coming from a place of wanting to help you. And so trying to figure out how to get on the same page in terms of mutual respect and, yeah, working to get to a place of effective collaboration is a really good goal to prioritize. And so I'm aware that I've really been pumping throughout this project the idea or the importance of working collaboratively with your care team around using metabolic therapies to treat your mental illness. But I think maybe I haven't been quite forthcoming enough about what exactly that has looked like for me, and also being honest about the very real challenges and difficulties that can arise in that situation of working with them. These difficulties are also why it has been really, really, really helpful to have Nicole as a keto coach to kind of give me more guidance around the medical intervention aspect of all of this, and to then hopefully try to bring that information to the rest of my care team in as effective and constructive a way as possible. So I'm worried that some people watching these videos have taken away a message that I am anti-medication or that I am anti-psychiatry, but that is not the case. I still think it is so, so important to be working with your psychiatrist and your care team, and I do think that they provide a lot of value. I think, though, why I'm trying to have these conversations is to kind of address and acknowledge the very real issues and difficulties that inevitably arise when we are facing or trying to navigate such a big shift in status quo or in our understanding of these big things. Navigating these big shifts can be really hard, and with such a kind of new intervention, it can also feel a little bit lonely or isolating, trying to figure out on your own how to navigate this, how to bring your care team on board, and all these big things. And so I'm really excited to share with you that we've started a new online peer support community geared specifically for people who are interested or are using metabolic therapies to treat their mental illness or mental disorders. It's quickly becoming such an incredible resource of people sharing their experiences, what has worked for them, what they've done to overcome challenges, and just a really amazing source of support when navigating this new treatment modality. And so if that is of interest to you, we have a link in the description below, as well as in a pinned comment with a link to join that community. We also still have our online peer support community geared specifically for people who are living with psychotic spectrum illnesses. And so if you are looking for a community specifically to connect with others with similar experiences of navigating a psychotic spectrum illness, that is available too. And we have a link for that in the description, as well as a pinned comment too. So I wanted to share this all with you because, yeah, I understand that it can be a really difficult experience trying to advocate for yourself, especially trying to introduce a new method of treatment with your care team. And I also understand that I have it probably easier than a lot of people in terms of having someone like Nicole who can offer extra guidance and kind of specialized information. But I think maybe what I want to leave you on here is that, yes, it's hard trying to figure out how to constructively navigate this with your care team and how to have effective collaborative communication with them, and what changes you can make to ultimately improve your quality of life is really, really worth putting in the effort to figure out with your care team. So thank you so much for watching this video, and as always, wishing you and your loved ones good health. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.